How perfectionism is killing your progress. I've just got off a call with our new members starting this month for our kickoff call, and a really prominent theme came through. Really great group of people that were able to go just dive straight into what were those mental blocks that were getting in the way of even the things they know they should be doing but aren't doing. And being able to really tackle this whole perfectionism or this judgment around getting things wrong was really powerful to go through. And Mandy and I, we're going to go through this today because it's something we see all the time and we actively push back on to really help clients both get the initial results, but more importantly, keep them long term. And I think, as an example, being able to look into achieving a result, there's this idea of theoretically knowing what to do, and then there's the actual practical knowledge of going through that process. And if you go traveling, for example, and say, oh, I put on weight because I was traveling, it's not the circumstance that caused you to put the weight on. It was a lack of skill in that scenario to be able to know what are those tweaks and refinements I can make in order to make the best of what I can do. So the ability to look at the skill aspect is one, but two is the ability to realize most of that skill is being okay with 80%, right? And I think for me, I've done many trips where, there was less than ideal food in that scenario. But if I'm asking those key questions, like, am I sitting down to eat rather than hoofing it as I walk somewhere? Where's my protein coming from? Am I trying to make sure I'm keeping my stimulants, my alcohols sort of away from meals? Those are skills that I can practically build into making a very real difference to travel as being one area that would slip people up. And I think, Mandy, you mentioned it before, but why do people have to wait till Monday? Why do they have to wait until after the trip to be perfect? There's plenty of reasons to start a diet in the middle of a bag of chips. There's plenty of reasons to start on Thursday rather than waiting for Monday. What are you seeing as the main blockage there, and ultimately that perfectionism that's coming through that just pushes everything off till Monday or to January or whatever it might be?
Mm. I think it ultimately is our need to have things all in order, feeling like we've got our ducks in a row, feeling like it's all going to be picture perfect and we've got the perfectly kind of planned meal that we can take a picture of and put on Instagram or whatever. Like we want to feel like we've got everything set up and ready to go for success. And there's actually, I feel like we've got to be careful here because there's actually nothing wrong with that desire to want to do it well. But that desire to want to do it so perfectly is the thing that stops so many people from doing it because when you are learning a new skill, we have to realize that we are always going to stuff it up. When we learn to walk, we fell over. When we learn to ride a bike, we crashed. When we've learned anything throughout our life, we've never been perfect straight away. And we're okay with that. But for some reason, when it comes to learning the new skill of how to learning the skills, say how to achieve a body composition that we want, or how to achieve health in a way that we want, or fitness that we want, we feel like we've got to be perfect at it straight away, and that we should know. And I think there is a huge difference between just knowing the stuff and actually being able to apply it in your own context. And it actually reminds me of a story. One of our ladies in mastery, she wasn't in mastery at the time. She was just still in the first 16 weeks of the program, and she was going to Australia for a trip with her partner. And she was a bit nervous because she had all these baby habits that she was protecting and building, and she was doing her meal prep and her training and all this stuff. And I said to her, you know what you know now. Now go and have the holiday and see what sticks. You know what you need to protect, and don't look at it as a I'm going to fail or this is going to throw me off course, but rather I get to take these new skills that I'm learning into a different environment and see which ones have really embedded themselves into my daily practices and my routines. And it turned out that her holiday absolutely turned to custard. Her partner ended up in hospital and she spent a lot of time in an Australian hospital. It was a real misery experience. But when she got back, we talked about it. We're like, what stuck? What was the learning? What did you hold on to? What got lost? And then that highlights the areas that you then can continue to work on, right? So you can flip the whole thing on its head from it wasn't perfect, but it was the perfect opportunity to learn. And that's what she took out of it, which was super cool.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. There's the one I was thinking of here as you were talking through the sort of micro adjustments, right? Is they've recently made this change, and I say recently, it's probably been 10 years now, but uh, when kids are learning to ride a bike now, they don't use the training wheels, right? They'll typically go on a bike that doesn't have pedals and kind of do the walking on the side thing and then get used to balance, right? And I've, you look at that in hindsight and you realize, well, that makes a lot more sense because you have to get used to the balance aspect as a primary part of riding a bike. Whereas if you
Mm.
just lean on a training wheel that's making you move forward, even if you're not learning the primary skill of balancing things, that's kind of the same thing. I think it's the same sort of personal awareness of like building up that skill of self-adjusting through the bumps and the turns and the things of life to be able to still anchor in the habit rather than try and realize that you can stay on track with your diet if you're at home with your Tupperware and your chicken and broccoli. But if you go away and you don't have said chicken and broccoli perfectly put together, what are those scenarios you do? So get rid of the training wheels, learn to balance, learns to tweak through the
Mm.
ebbs and flows of what you're doing. I actually did quite well integrating those two together. There you go.
That was a perfect
That
story.
was good. But yeah, it made me think of that overall idea of like you don't uh, know if you've actually learned something until you put yourself in a scenario
Mm,
that shows you the alternative, right? This whole idea of like you're not loyal until you're given the opportunity to not be loyal. You're
mm,
not consistent with something until you give the opportunity to like give it up for 3 weeks, what it might be. And I think being able to challenge that, like even not to get political at all, but the sort of presidents that we see as being great are the ones that have gone through certain areas that were significant amount of challenge and then they had to rise to the occasion, right? There's
mm,
going to be certain presidents out there that were actually really, really good, but they just had kind of an easy run through a particular season, right? And I think
mm,
that sort of challenging type nature allows you to really understand true character in many ways. And I
mm,
think, as you've mentioned, that sort of exploratory nature of like, I'm not sure how well this is going to go, but I've
mm.
got the ability to challenge how reinforced those habits are, what ones I need to spend more time on. And I'm not going to learn that by being completely wrapped in my bubble at home through the same routine. If I shake it up a little bit, what's still put in place, what's still anchored.
Yeah, and I think that perfectionism thing can be such a double-edged sword, right? If you want to be perfect, so then you go on holiday and you try to maintain perfectionism like you might have had it at home, and of course it inevitably doesn't work. And then you are like, well, I'm a failure and I'm no good at this, and I always suck at this, and I'm always having to start over. And you can kind of tell yourselves all these stupid stories about why you didn't stay perfect, when actually the perfectionism was the thing that tripped you up. If you realized it was never going to be perfect anyway, winning in that scenario was knowing how to maintain your non-negotiables and what you needed to hold on to and what you could be a little bit looser with. And that's the skill part, right? Like when it comes to health and fitness and all of these sorts of things, it's just learning, what does this look like in real life? Where's the ebb and where's the flow without compromise that actually puts me back where I don't want to be?
Yeah, I've even had that little reminder to myself this week with a lot more rain and it mostly being diagonal, and being like, oh yes, winter's on its way. And there's a quite a skill shift in where do I place that walk? Am I walking in the dark or the rain, or just working against that little bit extra resistance compared to like, oh, it's lovely outside, I can't wait to go for a work versus like I'm going to get drenched, but I need to go. There's quite a subtle difference in self-talk of whether that walk actually happens. And I think for me, it's been that quite required flip of switch to be like, come on, get the walk done. It's not going to be as exotic as when it was nice and sunny and you actually enjoyed the sunlight aspect. It's quite literally, torrential rain at the moment. Being able to kind of push against those, because I think I've seen those trends far too many times where summer goes well and then they hibernate through winter and then they start again next summer and they're like, oh, it's just winter. And as you mentioned, it's almost like unless you push back on that belief that's almost automatic, you are going to continue to go through that cycle. And just to reinforce that aspect of using that as a character building experience, or at least a skill building experience
Mm,
of how do I still stay in shape in winter, right? And it
mm,
means that there's other variables at play of you going for a walk when it's cold rather than when it's lovely and sunny outside and you want to be outside. So,
yeah.
or actually, funny enough, the other way as well, where you're really good at getting in shape in winter because you're quite happy to get the workouts in when it's crap outside, but because it's summer, you'd much rather be on the beach with a beer, right? There can be
Yeah.
it depends on the person, it depends on the skill set. What's the requirement or the circumstance that you need to develop yourself? And I think being able to use simple seasons as an example or travel in different locations can be a really nice way to address where that personal discrepancy is.
Mm. I think we forget as well that everything we do is not just equivalent to the value of one thing. There's an additive cumulative effect to everything we do. So if we do 80% for 100% of the year, or even 50% for 100% of the year, there's more to that than if we just go, we're good in winter and we're crap in summer, or vice versa. Because we're actually getting that time of, even though it's winter time and we might not be quite getting in the same amount of steps or might not be enjoying the walk quite as much, you're still building that skill set of showing up for yourself, and you're building that skill set of knowing that you do what you said you're going to do, and you're still getting some steps in. And it doesn't matter if you can come back a bit wet. Like, there's an additive cumulative effect to showing up and doing the thing, even if it's not quite as perfect as we might have wanted it to be. And same with
Mm.
meals, I think, as well.
Yeah, well, even this idea, I'm thinking of a little infographic I've seen a couple of times now, which I actually took a little bit to enjoy, but now I lean on it quite a bit, is this idea of I'm 100% every week. I'm 20% on Monday and I'm 30% on Tuesday. And it sort
Mhm.
of accumulates throughout the week. And I'm not going to continue the week because I'll get the percentages wrong. But it kind of gives you an idea of like, you can push a little bit more on some days, and then some other days you just show up, right? Like if I'm going to the gym and my recovery is poor, I'm still showing up to the gym. It's not like, cool, today's not perfect, I'll go tomorrow. It's I'm
Mm.
still showing up, but I'm adjusting the workout. I use the same with my wife and talking through, like if I'm tired, but I'm at like a 50%, and she walks in, I'm like, I'm at like 15. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm still higher than that. I'm going to have to, cook dinner or help with X, Y, and Z, right? So there's an almost relationship dynamic ultimately there in order to kind of step up when another person's low or under recovered or underslept.
Mm. Mm.
And in the exercise part, I think it's a really nice for many people. I assume that kind of makes sense, right? Like, oh, this is low, so this needs to be higher.
Mm.
Being able to use that week and that sort of dynamic, the more I think about that, with the meal aspect, right? Like if I'm a 20% for breakfast because I was out for lunch and I didn't have what I wanted. It doesn't mean it's 0% for lunch and it's all stopped till Monday. It's actually 100% for lunch. Let's get things back on track, right?
Mm.
So that if I have pancakes for breakfast, I can have a chicken salad for lunch. By no means am I saying this is equal to everything out, team, but I'm getting to a place where it's much better than saying, well, everything's stuffed now, go have a burger too, right? And I think that nature of being able to look at your overall averages, it's not perfect every meal. It's feel like you're directionally right for the week, and there's absolutely bumps in the road or the balancing the bike required throughout that week. You're allowing
Mm.
yourself to play the games of are you winning more than you're losing.
Mm. Which is one of the points that we were going to talk about there, which is that perfectionism wants you to restart all the time.
Hmm.
But actually, we don't need to restart. We just need to reset. So you do something, you have something maybe that was a bit off track or a bit unplanned or wasn't what you'd necessarily have chosen. You don't need to go back to square one. You don't need to start all over again. You just need to carry on at the next opportunity, at the next meal or the next whatever it is, with what you were intending anyway. It's just a resetting rather than a restarting all the time. And I think this is something that I do see quite heavily embedded into people's mindset is every time they'll start, and it probably comes from having done so many different diets and fads and things that there are out there. And we have this idea that you do it for 10 weeks and you do it perfect. And as soon as you stop, you have to restart it. And really, like health doesn't know. Your health doesn't care that you had a burger. Well, it does care that you had a burger, but it doesn't say, you had a burger, back to square one.
Yep.
You can just
Down the
carry.
snake ladder.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Monopoly,
Yeah.
but back to go.
Yeah.
Go $200.
Yeah, and I think that to bring up the whole point of your body keeps the score again, it's this idea of like if you have a burger, right? Or you have a night out drinking, and there's a particular stress that your body obviously has to work it through, synthesizing through the alcohol and generally just getting rid of the toxins you've had. What's more helpful? Getting back on track with some nourishing food and just sort of supporting like your liver and those key organs that are required to get back on track, or going for a 10-mile run or a 10K run, don't know why I said mile, getting in the sauna, doing a 3-day juice cleanse, and just fundamentally stressing the body out, trying to get back to reset, right? I think, or restart in this case, right? So being able to look at that sort of more iterative approach of like, this is a little bit better, and I'm allowing myself to get back on track, rather than trying to make it so drastic that you're actually ironically stressing the body out more, right? And we've seen this,
Mm.
and you recommend this all the time, right? Is like, okay, things aren't changing, so we're going to change this one element and then keep it for 2 weeks, right? It's not cool, nothing's working, blow it all up, start over here, completely different starting point. One,
Yeah,
we know have no idea how your body's going to respond there, and
yeah,
two, it didn't require that much change, And I think
yeah.
just being able to allow that to be iterative, it's a classic example of people mistake difficulty for progress. And just to go a little bit tangent for a second,
Mm.
I'm really not a fan, certainly in this sort of business and executive space at the moment, with how many certainly men in their 40s, 50s are trying to do something like 75 hard, right? And they're doing 2 workouts a day every day for 75 days. I'm like, if you just trained 4 days a week and recovered better, you would have been way better off. But let's get
Mhm.
60 days in and injure yourself. That's cool too. And just being able to get to a point of uh, this idea of like you're mistaking difficulty for progress. If you just did for a week and you lost 5 kilos, that's more progress than working out 7 days a week, putting on 2 kilos and getting injured. Right.
Yeah.
And I think just that nature of, oh, it needs to be better. So I need to just replace progress with activity. I need to do more is just
Mm.
kind of dumb. And I think that we're not looking at the right goal.
I think the same can be said with weight loss because we know weight loss isn't linear, right? You're doing all the right things, and then for whatever reason, you get a plateau for a week and a half or 2 weeks, and suddenly you think you need to change everything and go harder and restrict more and run more and all the things. So you do that, and then the scale drops down again. You're like, yes, I fixed it, but actually, you could have changed nothing, and it would have probably done that anyway. Now you just feel
Yeah.
more average about it.
Yeah.
It's like we exactly that we think that, well, if it's not working, we need to go harder, we need to do more, when actually maybe we just need to continue for longer with the thing that was working previously, because it's just that the body doesn't work with, weight loss isn't linear, progress isn't linear, nothing's perfect in life. So I don't know why we think it should be.
Yeah, one of the things that has plagued my mind this year, Mandy, I don't even know if we've even talked about this, and I don't know if I should, but it's
I'm
this.
very interested
This is
now.
this is admittance now. This is AA. Being able to look at how often you can change things, right? And for example, you're changing a funnel process or an email sequence or whatever it might be. Every time you make a drastic change in the company, and this was something I talked to a business coach the other day about, uh, you can expect a 20% reduction in performance while the team gets used to the change,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you've got to expect more than, at least 25, 30% increase in performance for it to be worth it, because it's not guaranteed. The upside is not guaranteed, but the decrease is.
Mm.
So the amount of times I change something now compared to what I used to has probably halved, if not, quartered, being able to really look at a fraction of the amount of changes, right? So yeah, that felt like an admittance, but being able to look at that nature of changing things for the sake of changing things, when, as you said, of just maintaining the thing for a longer period of time, i.e., the word patience comes in here, damn it, being
Mm.
able to lock that in is typically a better use of time. And as you said, allowing the body and trusting the body and respecting the body to make the changes required to get back on track would have been done instead of your aggressive nature of changing activities, to
Mm.
force it to change, right? And I think that's where you talk a lot about the body through the nurturing and the supporting space, and I do too, because hopefully we have a level of I want to use companionship. Where am I going today? But that respect nature for, like, if I look after my body looks after me. And if you've
Mm.
kind of felt your body not responding like it used to and everything's gone a bit sideways, maybe you've lost that a little bit. You're like, I don't trust my body. It's all changed a little bit. And I think it can be a very much double-edged sword, because you can make that worse by forcing it to change and then it just digging its heels in more.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a thought there that is fully going to tangent the discussion. We've
It's
gone way
not.
off perfectionism.
Yeah. Let's see if this is the angle you're going. But one of the things we did note down here was that negative self-talk can block the learning, right?
Mm.
Now, I think it very much ties into the whole reset versus restart, because if you make a mistake and you go, oh, well, that's all stuffed, I need to start again, you're not
Mm.
appreciating the learning and the development of that experiential skill that you've learned, rather than just the theoretical how it should have gone, right? And the concept that I use in every single kickoff for the last 5 years has been raising the ceiling, raising the floor, not the ceiling. After 5 years, I still can't get it right. Being able to get that focus in place. Restart. No, I'm going to keep working. Is being able to focus on building up that floor. What's the key things that I can maintain? The day's not perfect, but I got a 10-minute walk in. I nailed breakfast. Even if lunch wasn't amazing, I still got some steps in place, right? And I think being able to audit how you talk to yourself is one of those things that we all know we should be doing, or at least are mindful that it could be better, right? But it's also so non-tangible that it can be a little bit challenging to see progress in, other than I generally feel better today and I don't feel better tomorrow, whatever. So looking at options that I've brought up today on today's call was, it could be a journaling nature of what went well today, what could be better, right? That
Mm.
classic journal we use around auditing our self-talk. It could be an audio note to ourselves or to a friend. This is what I was going to say to myself. And what you're looking for is, would I say this out loud? Would I say it to a friend? And more times than not, it's probably no. So being able to make those changes around your self-talk process will likely be very correlated with this. This is stuffed. You buggered it. Start again entirely, rather than little slip up. We're going to make a change here and we're back on track, right? Like, if you talk to yourself differently, your actions typically change. And I think it wraps into this whole, like, patience, resilience. All of these things are less about the physical actions that happen and more mentally how you're talking about them.
Mm. Yeah, I had a big conversation a couple of months back with one of actually all of my pods on this, and it was just a point that landed quite well. And we had some really good discussions on it. But that idea, if you're not a failure because you fail, the fact that you failed is evidence that you're showing up and doing the thing. And that's the mindset shift, is when we kind of chase this perfectionism, we think we need to be perfect with it every time. We lose the opportunity to learn from the situations where we failed in, because all we are doing is beating ourselves up about it. And it was like the
Mm.
lady who went on holiday and things turned to custard. She could have viewed that as a failure, as I stuffed it up and I didn't protect this and I didn't do all the workouts that I was going to do. Or, and I like to ask this question. In fact, whenever anyone tells me, oh, I've had a really social week or I've been away on holiday or anything, I'm like, cool, what'd you learn? Is my first question. I want to know, what did you learn from that? Like, what went well, what didn't? What can we take away from that we can work on? And I think it's just changing our mindset of, if every time you stuff up, and you're gonna stuff up, it's part of it. That's an opportunity to learn. It's not an opportunity to beat yourself up because you're not so good at it.
Yeah. Look, I want to. I know you got to go for a call, so I'm going to finish this with a simple realization that we come from a lot of these suggestions from one, a ton of iterations with clients because we get to see this every day, but probably through our own experience in many ways too. And I was that guy that actually had a trip to Fiji about 8 years ago, maybe a little bit longer now, that I actually took about 35 pre-packed meals with me to Fiji, to a resort, to a holiday. Right, I was a fun guy. Um, and what I'm doing is highlighting that perfectionism nature of, like, it very much got in the way of me enjoying that holiday because there was a concern that I would be off plan or off diet or whatever the thing was at the time. Whereas now I would go on a holiday and I've got enough confidence in myself that even if things aren't perfect, I'll find a way to sort of stay on track, right?
Mm,
Our Canada trip last year was a very good example of that. Flying to lots of places, driving for very, very long periods of time as well, and always seemingly finding a pretty good option along the way, even in the middle of Revelstoke or wherever the hell we were, right? And being able to build that in a way, as you said, of experiential knowledge and changing your perspective and your stress response to travel and the unknown. Of being like, I'm going to find a way to figure it out because I've done it before. And I think you build that and get rid of that catastrophizing of, like, I can't stay on track when traveling, as an example. Is, of course, another skill, another muscle that can be built through your repetition, through the confidence of actions previously done. So,
mm,
again, just to really wrap up what you're saying around uh, it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity to build that skill. And I think when you have more of those experiences in the bag, it gives you that confidence to kind of walk through the next trip with a little bit of unknown, but still feel like you're on track.
yeah, I like it.
Cool. Team, love to know. Take a bit of time, obviously, if this is in your car, on your walk to work, wherever it might be, give yourself 5 or 6 minutes to have a little think around what this applies for you. How could you talk to yourself nicer? What plan are you delaying? What area are you doing, but you're just suffering more than you need to because you expect it to be 10 times better before you've given yourself a reasonable amount of time? Ask yourself that question. Keep it as a bit of a pondering movement rather than just clicking into the next podcast or moving on with your day. Appreciate you, and we'll see you again next week.